Sophia Chin didn't know that the muddy water hitting her pregnant stomach came from the man who once promised to love her forever. The same man who abandoned her in a hospital room where their daughter took her last breath. The same man who called her broken and worthless. The same man now laughing as dirty water soaked through her clothes, freezing against the belly where a miracle was growing. Marcus Davis leaned out of his luxury car, face twisted with contempt. Still shopping at discount stores like the poor, barren failure I left behind. Look at you, Sophia. And someone was actually desperate enough to get you pregnant? We both know your useless body can't carry a child. You'll kill this one too, just like you killed ours. But Marcus has no idea that the woman he just humiliated is now Sophia Montgomery, married to James Montgomery, the billionaire's son who controls the empire that holds every contract keeping Marcus's business alive. In 3 weeks, his father announces on live television that Sophia is pregnant with his heir, Marcus won't just lose his empire. He'll be destroyed while the world watches. What happens next will prove that karma doesn't just come for cruel men. It arrives in a billionaire's limousine with receipts. If this story is touching your heart, please hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss stories that remind us that true character reveals itself in our darkest moments. Drop a comment below telling us where you're watching from. 6 years ago, Sophia made a choice that would cost her everything she thought love was supposed to be. She was 22, standing in a courthouse wearing a simple white dress her mother had made, watching Marcus Davis slide a gold ring onto her finger. He was 28, confident, magnetic, the kind of man who made you feel like the only person in the room. "You're mine now," he whispered against her ear, and Sophia thought it sounded romantic. She didn't know yet that he meant it like ownership. Marcus was building something, an empire, he called it. Davis Properties, luxury developments across Boston, shopping centers, office buildings, apartments that cost more than most people made in a lifetime. And Sophia was proud of him. She worked as a pediatric nurse at Boston Children's Hospital, made $60,000 a year, came home every evening to a man who was becoming a king. The first year was beautiful. Marcus bought her things she never asked for. Designer dresses, expensive perfume, jewelry that felt too heavy on her skin. He took her to restaurants where she didn't recognize half the words on the menu. He introduced her to business partners as my wife, the nurse, and Sophia thought he was proud. She didn't hear the dismissiveness in his tone. She didn't see the way his colleagues smiled, polite but pitying. By the second year, the cracks started showing. Marcus began commenting on her clothes. "You're a Davis now, Sophia. You can't wear Target to dinner parties." He bought her new wardrobes without asking what she liked. He scheduled her hair appointments without telling her. He controlled her like she was another property he was developing. Sophia told herself it was love, that he just wanted her to fit into his world, that she needed to try harder. She worked extra shifts to buy the right clothes. She smiled through business dinners where she felt like a decoration. She learned to shrink herself smaller and smaller until she almost disappeared. The third year, she got pregnant. Sophia cried when she saw the positive test. Happy tears. She imagined a little girl with Marcus's dark hair and her brown eyes. They'd name her Lily. Marcus seemed excited too, at first. He told his board members, sent out cigars, posted about it on social media like it was a business achievement. But then the pregnancy became inconvenient. Sophia had morning sickness that lasted all day. She was exhausted. She couldn't attend events. Marcus grew frustrated. "You need to push through it, Sophia. I have investors to impress." At 6 months pregnant, Sophia was at the hospital finishing her shift when she felt the cramping. Sharp, violent, wrong. She called Marcus 17 times. He was in a meeting closing a $40 million deal. A colleague drove Sophia to the emergency room. The doctors tried everything, but baby Lily was born silent, 6 months old, perfectly formed, gone. Sophia held her daughter's tiny body, screaming for Marcus to come, to see her, to hold their baby just once. He arrived 8 hours later, still in his suit, smelling like whiskey and cologne. He stood at the foot of the hospital bed, uncomfortable, checking his phone. The doctor said these things happen. He said, like he was discussing a failed property inspection. "We could try again." Sophia looked at him holding their dead daughter and felt something inside her die that wasn't the baby. She couldn't speak, couldn't process that the man she married was treating their daughter's death like a minor inconvenience in a schedule. The doctor came in later, after Marcus had left to handle some calls. The news was worse than losing Lily. "Mrs. Davis, I'm very sorry. There were complications, the stress, the trauma. Your uterus sustained significant damage. Your chances of carrying another pregnancy to term are extremely low. We estimate 5 to 8%. Sophia was 26 years old, lying in a hospital bed, being told she was broken. When she told Marcus, his response was 5 words. "So you're basically barren." Not "I'm sorry." Not "we'll figure it out." Just that word, barren, like she was dead soil, worthless land, a failed investment. And from that moment on, Marcus used it like a weapon. At dinner parties, when people asked about children, "We'd love to, but Sophia has complications," said with just enough emphasis to make it sound like a character flaw. During arguments, "Maybe if you could give me a family, I'd have a reason to come home." To justify his affairs. "I'm 31 years old. I need an heir. You can't give me that." Sophia spent the next 3 years as a ghost in her own marriage. She went to therapy twice a week, took medication for depression, worked her nursing shifts during the day, and came home to a man who looked at her like she'd failed him. Marcus's affairs became obvious. Late nights, lipstick on collars, perfume that wasn't hers. A woman named Jessica started appearing at company events as his executive assistant. Everyone knew. Sophia knew. But she stayed because some part of her believed Marcus was right, that she was broken, that no one else would want her, that she deserved this. Until the night, she came home early from a hospital shift and found Marcus in their bed with Jessica. Both naked, both laughing. Marcus saw Sophia standing in the doorway, and he didn't even have the decency to look ashamed. He sat up, completely casual, like she'd interrupted a business meeting. "Maybe if you were more exciting, I wouldn't need to look elsewhere," he said. "And maybe if you weren't barren, I'd have a reason to stay faithful." Sophia packed a bag that night. Her hand was shaking so badly she could barely zip it. She filed for divorce the next morning. Marcus didn't fight it. "Good," he said. "I need someone who can actually give me a legacy." But Marcus didn't just let her go quietly. He told everyone, their friends, his business partners, their families, that Sophia was the one who cheated, that she destroyed their marriage, that she was unstable, broken, couldn't be trusted. He painted himself as the victim and Sophia as the villain. And for 11 months after the divorce, Sophia believed him. Sophia was living in a tiny apartment in Cambridge, barely big enough for a bed and a desk, working full-time at the hospital and going to therapy every Wednesday evening when her friend Maria dragged her to a charity event. "You need to get out," Maria insisted. "Meet people. You love helping kids. This is a Children's Health Foundation gala. It's perfect for you." Sophia almost said no. She'd spent 11 months rebuilding herself piece by piece, and the thought of being in a room full of strangers felt exhausting. But something made her say yes. Maybe it was the part of her that refused to let Marcus's voice win. Maybe it was the nurse in her who couldn't resist anything involving children and health. She wore a simple navy dress, the first dress she'd bought for herself in years. No one chose it for her. No one told her it wasn't good enough. It was hers. The gala was at a beautiful venue in downtown Boston, all soft lighting and elegant decorations. But Sophia fell out of place immediately. Everyone looked expensive, important, like they belonged in rooms like this. She was about to leave when she saw a man in a plain dark suit helping staff set up chairs near the back. He wasn't barking orders at staff or checking his phone. He was just helping. Sophia walked over. "Do you need a hand?" The man looked up and smiled. Genuine, warm, the kind of smile that reaches the eyes. "I'd love one. Actually, I'm terrible at making these rows straight." They worked in silence for a few minutes, arranging chairs, and then he said, "I'm James, by the way." "Sophia." "So, Sophia, what brings you here tonight?" She expected the usual small talk. "What do you do? Where do you live?" All the questions that felt like social additions. But James didn't ask any of that. Instead, he said, "What made you choose nursing?" And just like that, they spent 2 hours talking about medicine, about caring for sick children, about the moment when a child's fever finally breaks and their parents cry with relief, about how healing could save people. James listened like her words mattered, like she mattered. Not because of who she was married to or how much money she made or whether she could give him something, just because of who she was. When he asked for her number, Sophia hesitated. Her hand instinctively went to her stomach, a habit she developed after the miscarriage, like she was protecting a wound that never healed. "I'm not really ready for just coffee," James interrupted gently. As friends who both think pediatric care is criminally underfunded. Sophia laughed, really laughed, for the first time in over a year. They met for coffee 3 days later, then dinner, then long walks through Boston Common, where James talked about his work in family business operations but never elaborated. Sophia assumed he worked for some corporate firm. She didn't care. He was kind, patient. He never pushed, never demanded. When Sophia told him about her divorce, James didn't ask for details. When she cried, telling him about Lily, about the miscarriage, about being told she was barren, James held her hand across the table and said nothing, because nothing needed to be said. 4 months into dating, James took Sophia to meet his father. "There's something I need to tell you first," he said, and Sophia's stomach dropped. Here it comes, she thought. He's married. He's moving. He doesn't want this anymore. "My last name is Montgomery," James said quietly. Sophia blinked. "Okay, James Montgomery. My father is Robert Montgomery." The name hit Sophia like cold water. Robert Montgomery. The Robert Montgomery. Billionaire. Owner of Montgomery Global Industries. $20 billion. Buildings across Boston with his name on them. Government contracts. Healthcare holdings. One of the most powerful men in America. Sophia stood up so fast, she almost knocked over her chair. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I wanted you to know me. Not my last name. Not my father's money." James's voice cracked. "Does that change things?" Sophia thought about Marcus, who led with his money, his status, his achievements, who made sure everyone knew exactly how successful he was. Then she looked at James, who'd spent 4 months helping her arrange shares, talking about pediatric care, holding her when she cried, never once mentioning that his family controlled an empire. "No," she said, "it doesn't change anything." They were engaged 3 months later. The wedding was small, 50 people, mostly family. Sophia wore a dress she chose herself. Robert Montgomery insisted on walking her down the aisle because her father had died when she was 18. "You're my daughter now," Robert said, his voice thick with emotion. "Not my daughter-in-law. My daughter." Marcus Davis never knew it happened. Sophia had blocked him on everything, moved on completely. When Sophia became Sophia Montgomery, her life transformed overnight. Security details, media attention, events at government buildings. But Sophia didn't change. She kept nursing, kept volunteering. The pediatric patients at Boston Children's Hospital didn't care that their nurse was now married to a billionaire's son. They just cared that Nurse Sophia always had the gentlest touch and gave the best hugs. 3 months into the marriage, Sophia felt nauseous during a morning shift. She excused herself, went to the staff bathroom, and took a pregnancy test she'd been carrying in her bag for a week, too terrified to use. 2 lines. Positive. Sophia's hand shook so violently she dropped the test. She slid down the bathroom wall and cried. Not from joy. Not yet. From terror. Because the doctors had told her this would never happen. Because she'd been told her body was too broken, too damaged, too traumatized to carry life. Because some part of her still believed Marcus's voice. You'll kill this one too. She called James from the bathroom floor. I need you to come get me. 20 minutes later, James was there. Sophia showed him the test, unable to speak. James's face went through a dozen emotions in seconds. Shock, fear, hope, determination, before settling on something fierce and protective. He knelt on the bathroom floor and took Sophia's face in his hands. We're going to do this together. Every appointment, every moment, every fear. You're not alone. At 4 months, the doctors confirmed it. The pregnancy was healthy, stable, miraculous, one doctor said. At 5 months, Sophia's bumps started showing. She told her pediatric patients she was going to be a mommy. They made her cards covered in glitter and misspelled words. Sophia cried happy tears. Robert Montgomery was beside himself with joy. His first grandchild, an heir to everything he'd built. He threw a small family dinner to celebrate. And when he toasted Sophia, he said something that made her cry all over again. You've given this family something we didn't know we were missing. Not an heir, not a legacy, but hope. You've shown us that broken things can heal. That love is stronger than pain. That the best things in life aren't bought. They're built by people who refuse to give up. Sophia was 5 months pregnant, glowing with a happiness she thought she'd never feel when she decided to visit her mother in her old neighborhood. She needed to pick up some things, crackers, ginger ale. The cravings were getting specific. She stopped at a discount grocery store, the same one she'd shopped at for years. She wore comfortable maternity jeans and a loose sweater. Hair in a messy bun, no makeup, no security detail for once. She convinced James she just needed an hour to feel normal. She was crossing the street, grocery bags in hand, one hand protectively on her bump when she heard the engine rev. A black Mercedes accelerated toward a massive puddle right beside her. Sophia barely had time to process it before the impact. A tsunami of muddy water, freezing cold, violent, exploding over her body. It soaked her from head to toe, covered her face, drenched her pregnant belly, ruined her groceries. Sophia stood there dripping, shocked, her hands instinctively covering her stomach. The Mercedes stopped. The window rolled down, and Sophia saw him. Marcus. That face. Those eyes. That smile she used to think was charming, but now recognized as cruel. Oh my God, Sophia, is that you? Marcus's voice was pure delight, pure victory. He was laughing, actually laughing. Jessica sat in the passenger seat. Designer sunglasses, designer purse, designer cruelty. She giggled. Marcus, you're terrible. Is that really your ex-wife? In the flesh, Marcus said, looking Sophia up and down like she was roadkill. Still shopping at discount stores. Still living that budget life. Some things never change, huh? Sophia couldn't speak, couldn't move. She just stood there, 5 months pregnant, covered in filthy water, staring at the man who destroyed her. Marcus's eyes landed on her stomach. His smile widened, sharp, vindictive. Wait, are you pregnant? Sophia's hand shook. She said nothing. Marcus's laughter turned vicious. Oh my God, Jessica, look. Some desperate fool actually knocked up my barren ex-wife. He leaned further out the window, his voice dropping to something designed to hurt. We both know your useless body can't carry a child, Sophia. You'll kill this one too, just like you killed ours. What idiot agreed to get you pregnant? Does he know you're defective? The words hit Sophia like physical blows. Her vision blurred, not from the muddy water, from the memories flooding back. The hospital room, Lily's tiny body, Marcus's voice saying, these things happen. The doctor saying barren. The years of believing she deserved this. Marcus rev his engine. You know, I always wondered what happened to you after the divorce. Guess you're still exactly where I left you. Struggling through life. Poor and pathetic, pretending you're not broken. Jessica's laughter mixed with the sound of traffic. Marcus, she looks miserable enough already. Does she? Marcus grinned wider. I think she looks exactly like what she is. Ordinary. A failure. A woman nobody wanted until some desperate man settled. He caught Sophia's eyes one last time. Good luck keeping that baby alive, Sophia. We both know how that story ends. The Mercedes sped off, engine roaring, leaving Sophia standing in a puddle of filthy water, groceries destroyed, dignity shattered. 5 months pregnant and covered in mud that smelled like sewage and oil and rot. People on the street stared. Some looked concerned, some uncomfortable. One teenager had their phone out filming. Sophia's hands trembled as she pulled out her phone. The screen was wet. Her fingers left muddy prints. She dialed James's number. He answered on the first ring. Hey, love. House. Can you pick me up? Sophia's voice cracked. Something happened. 20 minutes later, a black Range Rover with tinted windows pulled up. 2 security personnel stepped out first, scanning the area like they were protecting royalty. Then James emerged. The moment he saw Sophia, covered in mud, shaking, crying, hands protectively on her pregnant stomach, his face went from concern to something cold and lethal. He wrapped his coat around her shoulders, and Sophia told him everything. Every word, every laugh, the comment about killing this baby too. James's jaw clenched so tightly Sophia could hear his teeth grind. His hands were gentle on her face, but his eyes were murder. Do you know who did this? My ex-husband, Marcus Davis. James helped her into the car and spoke quietly to his security team. Give me everything on Marcus Davis. Everything. Business holdings, contracts, debts, partners, affairs. And find that video. Within 2 hours, the video had gone viral. Billionaire splashes mud on pregnant woman. 20 million views. The comments were vicious. Who does this to a pregnant woman? That's someone's wife. This man is a psychopath. Then someone recognized Sophia from a charity event photo. Wait, that's Sophia Montgomery, the billionaire's daughter-in-law. The story detonated across every news outlet in Boston. Property developer humiliates billionaire's pregnant daughter-in-law. Marcus's phone exploded with calls. His PR team, his lawyers, his board members, all panicking. By the next morning, Marcus received a call he'd never forget. The governor's office. Not a request, a command. All state contracts under immediate review. Ethics violations. $500 million frozen. Marcus tried calling his government contacts. No one answered. What Marcus didn't know, Robert Montgomery had made 3 phone calls. That's all it took. Within 48 hours, for major banks called in $90 million in loans. Marcus's stock crashed 58% in one day. His board voted him out as CEO. Jessica left him that same week. She'd already started dating a hedge fund manager, someone whose empire wasn't currently imploding. Marcus sat in his Beacon Hill penthouse, watching the walls close in, unable to understand how everything fell apart so fast. He'd splashed mud on his pathetic ex-wife. So what? She was nobody. She'd always been nobody. He didn't know yet that Sophia was a Montgomery. He didn't know yet that the video had 25 million views. He didn't know yet that every powerful person in Boston had seen it. But he was about to find out. 3 weeks after the incident, Robert Montgomery stood before 300 of Boston's most powerful people at a Children's Health Foundation gala, broadcast live on national television. Sophia stood beside James, glowing in an emerald gown that perfectly showed her 6-month bump. Tonight, Robert said, his voice filling the grand ballroom, I'm honored to announce that my daughter-in-law Sophia is carrying my first grandchild, the heir to the Montgomery family legacy. The room erupted in applause. Cameras flashed. News outlets scrambled to update their headlines. But Robert wasn't finished. This child represents everything my family values. Compassion, integrity, respect. Which is why I want to be clear. Anyone who disrespects my family, who would harm my daughter or endanger a child, will face the full consequences of their actions. Everyone in the room knew exactly who he was talking about. 12 million viewers watched it live. Marcus sat alone in his penthouse, soon to be seized by banks, and watched Sophia, his ex-wife, the woman he called barren and worthless, standing in a room filled with the most powerful people in America, carrying the Montgomery heir, loved and protected and radiant. The phone in his hand slipped from his grip. The room spun. This couldn't be happening. Sophia? His Sophia? Married to James Montgomery? But the evidence was there on the screen. The way James's hand rested protectively on her back. The way Robert Montgomery called her daughter. The way every powerful person in that room looked at her with respect. Marcus had just declared war on the Montgomery family, and he hadn't even known it. The next 72 hours were a masterclass in systematic destruction. All of Marcus's government contracts were terminated permanently. $800 million in projects gone. His company's valuation dropped from $600 million to $80 million in a week. Banks called in every outstanding loan. Properties were seized. Investors fled. Partners terminated agreements. Business associates who once took his calls now blocked his number. Marcus tried to salvage something, anything. He called in favors, made promises, begged. But every door that had once opened for him was now locked. Every hand that once shook is now pulled away. Because Robert Montgomery hadn't just destroyed Marcus's business. He destroyed Marcus's reputation. A single phone call to the right people, a quiet word in the right ear, and suddenly everyone in Boston's business community knew. Marcus Davis had humiliated a pregnant woman. Marcus Davis was cruel. Marcus Davis could not be trusted. And in a city where reputation was currency, Marcus was bankrupt. His penthouse was seized. His cars were repossessed. His country club membership was revoked. The life he'd built for 34 years dismantled in less than a month. Jessica had already moved on, posting photos with her new hedge fund boyfriend on social media. Marcus's friends stopped calling. His mother stopped answering his calls. He ended up in a modest apartment in South Boston, working as a real estate consultant, making $70,000 a year. The same income level he'd sneered at when he was with Sophia. Every morning, Marcus woke up in his small apartment and remembered the penthouse, the cars, the power. Every night, he scrolled through news articles about Sophia Montgomery, beloved nurse, philanthropist, mother-to-be. She was everywhere. Magazine covers, news interviews, charity events. Always smiling, always glowing, always protected by a family that could destroy empires. Marcus had called her barren, worthless, a failure, and she'd proven him wrong in every possible way. The irony was suffocating. Sophia, the woman he'd thrown away, was now worth more than he'd ever be. Not because of money, though she had access to billions, but because of who she was. Kind, resilient, loved. And Marcus? He was exactly what he'd accused Sophia of being. Ordinary, struggling, forgotten. The universe had a sense of humor after all. 3 months later, Sophia went into labor at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday. James drove her to Boston General Hospital while calling ahead to ensure everything was ready. Robert Montgomery arrived within the hour, pacing the waiting room like an expectant grandfather should. Sophia's labor lasted 14 hours. Long, painful, terrifying. Every contraction brought back memories of Lily, of the doctor saying barren, of Marcus's voice saying you'll kill this one too. But James was there, every moment, holding her hand, wiping her forehead, whispering, "You're doing amazing. You're so strong. I'm right here." At 4:37 p.m., Sophia gave birth to a healthy baby boy. 8 pounds, 4 ounces. Perfect. She held him against her chest and cried. Not from pain, not from fear, but from overwhelming, impossible joy. The baby she was told she could never have. The miracle that proved every cruel word Marcus had said was a lie. "Hello, Michael," she whispered, naming him after her late father. Michael Robert Montgomery. James cut the umbilical cord with shaking hands, tears streaming down his face. Robert Montgomery held his grandson and wept openly. "Welcome to the world, Michael. You have no idea how loved you are." The announcement went out within hours. News outlets across the country ran the story. Sophia Montgomery gives birth to healthy baby boy. The comments were overwhelming. What a beautiful story of hope. After everything she went through, she deserves this happiness. That baby is going to be so loved. Sophia spent 5 days in the hospital, recovering, learning to nurse, marveling at the tiny human she and James had created. Nurses who'd worked with her congratulated her. Patients sent flowers. The entire pediatric wing celebrated. When Sophia finally came home with baby Michael, there were balloons and flowers and a nursery that looked like something from a magazine. But Sophia's favorite part was the rocking chair by the window, the one James had bought, the one where she could sit and feed Michael and watch the sunrise and remember that broken things really could heal. Marcus Davis saw the announcement on the news. He was in his apartment, eating takeout, scrolling through his phone. The image of Sophia holding a healthy, beautiful baby boy felt like a knife to his chest. She'd done it. The woman he called barren had carried a baby to term. The woman he called worthless was now one of the most beloved figures in Boston. The woman he threw away was living the life he'd always wanted. Family, legacy, love. And Marcus had nothing. No wife, no empire, no respect, no future. He destroyed the best thing in his life because he was too arrogant to see her value. And now, watching her hold her son, he finally understood what he'd lost. But it was too late. It had been too late the moment he splashed that mud. 1 year later, Sophia sat in a park in Cambridge, pushing Michael in his stroller. He was 14 months old now, walking, laughing, saying mama and dada, and bringing endless joy to everyone who met him. James sat beside her on the bench, his hand in hers, watching their son chase pigeons with uncoordinated toddler steps. "Do you ever think about him?" James asked quietly. Sophia knew exactly who he meant. Sometimes, not with anger anymore, just sadness. For what he became, for what he lost. "Do you regret anything?" Sophia thought about it. The pain, the trauma, the years of believing she was broken. Then she looked at Michael, giggling as he fell on his bottom, and at James, who'd proven that love could be gentle and kind and real. "No," she said, "because if I hadn't gone through all of that, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't have you. I wouldn't have Michael. I wouldn't know what real love feels like." Marcus Davis never contacted her, never apologized, never acknowledged what he'd done. Sophia heard through mutual acquaintances that he was still in Boston, still working as a consultant, still alone. Part of her felt sorry for him. Another part knew that some people never learn, never change, never take responsibility for the pain they cause. But Sophia had learned something crucial. You don't need revenge when you have peace. You don't need validation from the people who hurt you when you're surrounded by people who love you. You don't need to prove your worth when you finally know your value. Sophia went back to work part-time at the hospital. She started a foundation for women who'd experienced pregnancy loss. She gave speeches about resilience and hope. She showed up every day as living proof that your past doesn't define your future. And Michael grew up surrounded by love from his parents, his grandfather, the family that chose healing over bitterness. Years later, when Michael was old enough to ask questions, Sophia told him the truth. About Lily, about the pain, about the man who said cruel things. But she also told him about kindness, about second chances, about how the darkest moments can lead to the most beautiful beginnings. "Your story starts with love," she told him. "And that's all that matters." Final chapter thoughts. The Bible says in Galatians 6 verse 7, "Do not be deceived. God cannot be mocked. A man reaps what he sows." Marcus sowed cruelty and reaped destruction. Sophia sowed humility and reaped a kingdom. This story reminds us that character, not wealth, determines our destiny. That broken things can heal. That love is stronger than pain. That sometimes the best revenge is simply living well. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell so you never miss stories that remind us what really matters in life. Tell us in the comments where you're watching from and share this with someone who needs to remember that miracles happen to those who refuse to give up. God bless you. And remember, your worth is not determined by the people who couldn't see it. Your value is inherent, unchangeable, and beautiful. Thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next story.